even to glimpse prosperity. In Tokyo department stores, elegant fashion shows drew curious crowds. They couldn't afford the clothes, but they could dream of a time when they could.
She tries and tries to sing a song. Boy Canary will sing a...
The collision between dreams of affluence and memories of poverty raised difficult questions. Where was Japan heading, and who would be left behind?
Don't cry.
In 1960, while protests raged in Tokyo, the eyes of the nation were drawn to a few poverty-torn villages on the island of Kyushu. In a collection of photographs by Ken Domon called The Children of Chikuho, Japanese caught a glimpse of life in the coal towns. Here, by the mountains of chalky black bricks that had fueled the nation, miners would erupt in Japan's most violent battle over the rights of workers and the future of the Japanese economy. For over a century, coal had been Japan's most important natural resource. But the miners were anything but national heroes.
Miners were desperate people. They were called scamps or rogues. I was 17 when I first started working in the mines. When I came home, I wouldn't tell anyone that I was a miner. Of course, the money was better than many jobs in the area, but it was miserable work.
From the hard life of the coal mines grew powerful labor unions. The most militant local emerged from the Miike mine of the Mitsui Company. Fearing layoffs in a nation with few good jobs, the miners had negotiated ironclad guarantees of job security. But changes were on the horizon. By 1960, the United States had guaranteed Japan's access to a new source of energy, oil. The Japanese government decided to steer the country away from coal. In response to the new energy policy, Mitsui broke its agreement with the miners and laid off 1,200 workers. Outraged workers occupied the mine. It was the beginning of a bitter strike at Miike that would last nearly 10 months. The struggle began when Mitsui sponsored a new union with foremen, managers, and replacement workers. Then Mitsui tried to send them past the picket lines to work the mines. The struggle at Miike captured national attention. Many of the same activists who were battling the security treaty in Tokyo traveled to Miike to help the strikers. The miners' strategy was to keep the company from shipping its coal. Mitsui's strategy was to outlast the miners. They had financial support from many of Japan's major industrial companies who were determined to break the unions any way they could.
One day, 12 hired cars pulled up. Out stepped a group of hired thugs. They made sure we saw that they had knives and guns. Then they asked for the leader of the picket line. The workers were getting scared, so I got them singing labor songs. The thugs left, but about 2 minutes later, a worker from the south gate roared up on his motorcycle. He was screaming, "Kubo-san has been stabbed." By the time I got there, all I saw was my friend Kubo-san being carried off to the hospital. Even today, when I hear the word Mitsui, my heart swells with hatred. Back then, everyone, husbands and wives, children and adults, felt the same way. It was that hatred that sustained us throughout the fight.
By July of 1960, Miike was a national crisis. The Japanese government sent 15,000 members of the National Police Force, 10% of the country's total, to force the Union away from the mine. Sympathetic Japanese unions responded by sending in over 15,000 workers. The government was nervous about a possible bloodbath. 10 months after the strike had begun, the government persuaded Mitsui and the Miike Union to accept binding arbitration. The Central Labor Relations Board ruled in favor of Mitsui. The miners lost their strike at Miike, but their ability to wage such a long battle left its mark on Japan. Seeing the bitterness of workers as a threat to the future, Japan's largest companies made one crucial concession to workers.
The
unions won an end to arbitrary layoffs. Management did all it could to prevent layoffs in order to have a more satisfied workforce. Gradually, Japan's major industries adopted a policy of so-called lifetime employment.
Job security brought labor peace and stability for Japan's largest companies, the second pillar of Japan Inc. But to move forward, the government needed to unify the Japanese people. That was hard, for old political wounds still divided the nation. In angry speeches made during the election campaign of November 1960, the leader of the Socialists, Inejiro Asanuma, warned that the specter of pre-war Japan still haunted the nation. His vision was tragically real. Asanuma died moments later. His assassination by a right-wing fanatic stunned the nation. It was a terrifying climax to a year filled with bitter conflict. As 1960 ended, the battle-weary Japanese looked for someone to heal the wounds of the nation. The man who emerged was not a man of business or a man of politics. He came from the most critical division of Japan Inc., the economic bureaucracy. His name was Hayato Ikeda.
He was a bureaucrat rather than a politician. He came out of the finance ministry. He dealt with practical problems and practical solutions. No wonder when he came to France that de Gaulle, after meeting him, was so unimpressed and said,